Okay, well, good morning, ninth grade. I hope you all are doing well. Today we are on Chapter 10, Review. Can you believe that? We have already made it to our first review. This is part 1 of our review. We've made it through 10 chapters. Pretty amazing. Hopefully we'll get through at least another chapter, if not another chapter in a little bit, or 2 more chapters before the semester's over. So this is Chapter 10, Review, and I'm on page 429 is where your homework's going to be. But I'm going to do some sample problems. So just get out some notes. If you need to get some notes, get them out now, and we're just going to go over these. What do we do in order to solve them? So we're going to start with a sample problem here. That's what most of these are going to be, and then I'm going to give you your homework. So if we have something, let's look at this. A cubed C plus A squared C squared plus AC cubed. Okay, now what I'm going to do here, the first step, always, is to pull out what's in common. So look at these. This has an A, this has an A, and this has an A. So what does that mean? It means I can automatically pull an A out of all of them. Then I look here. This one has a C, this one has a C, this one has a C. So what do I know? I can pull out a C from this one as well. Now I pull out one A here. I had 3, so now I'm down to A squared. I pull out the C is gone. Then I have plus. Again, I pull out 1A, so I'm left with 1A because there was 2, and I pulled out 1. I pulled out 1C, and there were 2 C's, so I'm left with 1 more C. And now I pull out this A, it's gone, and I had 3 to start with, so now I'm down to 2. Okay, but I'm not done yet. I did a good job of factoring this AC out of there, so that's very important. But now I need to see, okay, what do I do about this guy right here? Well, once I get to there, the reality is I have to say, okay, can I get anything that would look like this? A times A, and I know that it's going to have to be C times C, and they're both, this is a plus, so they're both got to be positive, but look what happens when I do that. A times A, that's right, A squared, but I get A plus AC, and then plus another AC, so I'm going to have 2 AC, and that doesn't match here. So what that means is I've done as much as I can do, and I can erase this mark here, and I can actually just leave it. This right here is my final answer because there's nothing that will factor this term. So that right there is my final answer. Okay, let's do another one. Right here, x squared minus 11x plus 24. Okay, again, I can do this thing where I say, what is A? Well, A in that case is 1. So A times C, what's C in this case? 24. So 1 times 24 is 24. So what is B in this case? It's negative 11. So I come over here and I say what times what equals 24 and is going to give me this negative 11. So let's think what times what is 24. We got 2 times 12. We've got 3 times 8 and 4 times 6. Now which one of those is going to give us an 11 when added together? Again, down here, the 3 and the 8 added together is going to give us 11. So I can rewrite this by grouping if I want to, or I could rewrite it just, it's easy enough, but let's do it by grouping. So I group these, boom, oops, sorry, not yet. I rewrite this here as x squared minus, and I have my 3x minus 8x plus 24. Okay, now I do my grouping like this, okay? And so when I go to pull this out, I pull out an x on this side, and I'm left with x minus 3. And I come to this side, and I can pull out an 8, and I get an 8 there, and I'm left with x minus 3. And I know I did my job right. Whoop. I know I did my job right because I got this x minus 3 and x minus 3. So I just combine this x and this x minus 8 over here to get x minus 8, parentheses, x minus 3, parentheses, and there is my final answer, right? I combined what was here, the x and the minus 8, and then I combined what was here, the x minus 3 and the x minus 3 to get an answer right there, x minus 8, parentheses, x minus 3. Okay, let's do one that has multiple steps, that has factoring. So this one is going to have 2a squared minus 16a minus 40. Now, the first thing I always have to do is look to see, is there any number in front that I can take out? And yes, they're all even numbers, so I can divide by 2. I'm going to get a squared minus 8a minus 20. Okay, so that is the first step, and you have to do that first. Now I'm looking at this guy, and I'm saying, okay, 20, not a square root, so I know it's not a difference of squares, so I got to go, what is 20? What will multiply by 20 and give me negative 8? So I got 2 times 10, 5 times 4, and 1 times 20. Well, it's pretty clear here, right? This negative 8 is going to happen when the 10 and the 2 are subtracted, and so that's if the 10 is negative. So I'm going to come down here and do 2. I'm going to have A and A. And I know that the 10 needs to be negative because the overall is negative here. So negative 10. And then I'm just left with my positive 2. And there's my final answer right there. 2 times A plus 2 and A minus 10. Okay. Now, this homework's going to move into finding the difference of squares. So on this review of the test. So let's do this one right here. It's, I can get there. Let's do one that's a little harder. 6a squared minus 26a minus 20. Okay, so again, I see each one of these is an even number, so I can pull out a 2. So pull out a 2, and I'm left with 3a squared minus 13a minus 10. Okay, now this is where I really need to use the grouping method, and I do, what is this 3 times the 10? Well, that's 30, so AC equals 30. Then I look at this middle term, which is negative 13, so I say B equals negative 13. So I need to know what times what is 30, but then that will give me a negative, sorry, this is a negative 30. That will give me a negative 13. So, okay, what times what is 30? Well, I got 5 times 6, and I have 3 times 10. Now, which one of these is going to give me a negative 13? Ooh, this guy right here, right? This 3 and this 10 has the opportunity for giving me what I need, right? So I go now, or actually, and I also have 2 times 15, sorry, which will also give me 13. So now I have, okay, now I got to choose. Like, see, this gives me 13 if I add them, and this gives me 13 if I subtract them. Well, I got to look up here and I say, ooh, this is a negative, which means they can't be the same sign, right? The only way they can be the same sign is if this is negative 3 and negative 13. Okay, and if they're both negative, then this is not going to be a negative. So I know it's not that one right there because they both can't be negative. One would have to be positive. So I come down here and I say, what if the 2 is positive, but the 15 is negative? Ooh, that's going to give me negative 13 and give me negative 30. So I come over here and group, and I write this down. I have the 3a squared, and I do plus 2a, and that's one group, and the 2 is still out here. And then I have, over here, I have the minus 15a minus 10, right? Drop this 10 right there. This 3a squared right there. Now I factor, and I get the a out down here, so I get 2, and then I have times a times 3a plus 2, and then I pull this out. I pull out a negative 5, and I get 3a plus 2, and that's how I know I did it correctly, right? 3a plus 2, 3a plus 2. So my final answer, and I got to put these a minus 5 together. So my final answer then, and I have to use this 2 right here as well, is now, let me see if I can erase this so I have space, is now 2 times a minus 5. Okay, that's this guy, and then I add these guys together, right? Times 3a plus 2. And there is my final answer. Okay? Now, another one that we have to do for this lesson is a difference of squares. So let's say we have 4y squared minus 9. Remember, difference of squares, we have one number here, and we can take the square root of that. Ooh, that's a perfect square. 4 is a perfect square. Y squared is a perfect square. And we have a minus sign. So I know it is a difference of squares, so I just start taking the square root. So what's the square root of 4? 2 and 2. What's the square root of y squared? Y and y. What's the square root of 9? 3 and 3. And when I have this right here, one is positive, one is negative. And it doesn't even matter. That's how straightforward it is. Just do exactly what I need to do there and plug it in, okay? So there's a good example of a difference of squares. Let's do one here that is, we'll probably finish with this next example, one of these next few here. One that is not a difference of squares, because difference of squares I think you guys have got down. That's not too hard to understand. Let's try one that looks like this. 36x squared plus 12x plus 1. Now on this one, again, I'm going to look at it and say, this can be perfectly squared, that can be perfectly square rooted, right? So I'm gonna give it a shot. So I'm gonna say, what's the square root of 36 is 6. So there's my 6. What's the square root of x squared? X and x. What's the square root of 1, 1, and 1? And I look at here and I say, this is a positive and this is a positive. So there we go. 6x plus 1, right? Because that's going to give me, when I do this out, it's going to be 36x squared, which is what I want, plus 6x, plus 6x plus 1. And these guys are going to combine to get 12x, and I'm going to say I did it right. So my overall answer then is simply this, 6x plus 1 squared. Okay, so that's how to do that. Now let's do one more example of one that is a negative example. So we have x squared minus 6x plus 9. Now I come to this one, I say the same thing, right? I can take the square root of 9, I can take the square root of x squared. So I come down here and I say I'm going to go for it. I'm going to do x and x, square root of 9 is 3 and 3, right, the square root of 9. So now I say, okay, this is a plus, so they have to be the same sign, but look at this one, it's a minus, which means they both have to be minus. Let's see if this works. X times x, x squared minus 3x plus 9. I combine these guys, and we have minus 6x, so boom. I know it worked. My answer, x minus 3 squared. Okay, I know that was faster, but I know that those of you who have done this many times, we've taken 2 days on most of these lessons, so this should all be review. Okay, so here is our homework to do on this. This is on page 429. Page 429. This is review 1, so we're going to do another review day on Monday. So we're just going to do this 1 through 22 all. Okay, so the beginning is easy. You're just factoring out the numbers, and then from then on, you are just trying to solve to its most basic form. Okay, so there we go. That is all for today. Mr. H is over and out. Enjoy your weekend.